Welcome back to Level Paths as we are continuing our devotions in the book of Colossians. Today we'll be in chapter 3, verses 1 through 4. But before we get into the text, I thought I'd do a reading that I've been thinking about a lot as we've been in chapter 2 and now transitioning to chapter 3 and thinking about the sort of the basis of our religion as Christians. Which Paul is saying in this particular book is our union with Christ. That's the place from which we function in our practice of our faith, that we've been united with Christ's death and his resurrection. And there are some early church writings that have come to mind as I've thought through some of the things that Paul has said. This first reading comes from the Epistle of Barnabas in chapter 15, starting in verse 8, going to verse 9. Which says, "Moreover, he says to them, I cannot stand your new moons and Sabbaths." You see what he means. It is not the Sabbaths of the present time that are acceptable to me, but the one I have made, in which I will give rest to all things, and make a beginning of an eighth day, which is the beginning of another world. Therefore, also we celebrate the eighth day with gladness. For on it Jesus arose from the dead and appeared and ascended into heaven. And so what Barnabas is saying is we want to fix our eyes on the future, not on the past. And we want to live today in light of what Christ has done and his second coming, and that future invasion of the resurrection of Jesus should be informing what we set our minds on today. That eighth day, that new creation, that altogether different world that is to come. And then another reading is in the Epistle of Diognetus, which says this in chapter 5. For Christians are no different from other people in terms of their country, language, or customs. Nowhere do they inhabit cities of their own, use a strange dialect, or live life out of the ordinary. They have not discovered this teaching of theirs through reflection or through the thought of meddlesome people, nor do they set forth any human doctrine, as some do. They inhabit both Greek and barbarian cities, according to the lot assigned to each, and they show forth the character of their own citizenship in a marvelous and admittedly paradoxical way, by following local customs in what they wear and what they eat, and in the rest of their lives. They live in their respective countries, but only as resident aliens. They participate in all things as citizens, and they endure all things as foreigners. Every foreign territory is a homeland for them, every homeland foreign territory. They marry like everyone else and have children, but they do not expose them once they are born. They share their meals, but not their sexual partners or their wives. They are found in the flesh, but do not live according to the flesh. They live on the earth, but participate in the life of heaven. They are obedient to the laws that have been made, and by their own lives they supersede the laws. They love everyone and are persecuted by all. They are not understood, and they are condemned. They are put to death and made alive. They are impoverished and make many rich. They lack all things and abound in everything. They are dishonored, and they are exalted in their dishonors. They are slandered, and they are acquitted. They are reviled, and they bless, mistreated, and they bestow honor. They do good, and are punished as evil. When they are punished, they rejoice as those who have been made alive. They are attacked by Jews as foreigners and persecuted by Greeks, and those who hate them cannot explain the cause of their enmity. To put the matter simply, what the soul is in the body, that is what Christians are in the world. The soul is spread throughout all the limbs of the body. Christians are spread throughout the cities of the world. The soul lives in the body, but it does not belong to the body. Christians live in the world, but do not belong to the world. The soul, which is invisible, is put under guard in the visible body. Christians are known to be in the world, but their worship of God remains invisible. And so these writings from these early Christians, Barnabas and Diognetus, and these letters Barnabas and Diognetus. They speak to the things that we've been talking about here in Colossians chapter 2 and chapter 3. That is, we have a religion that's not originated from the earth. It originated in heaven, and with the coming of the Son of Man and his incarnation, and then his death and resurrection, that's where they find their origin. The religion, that's where our religion finds its origin. And so as we continue on in chapter 3, we see really a continuation of what Paul was talking about in chapter 2. He said he's fleshing out or filling out this idea of our union with Jesus Christ. And you'll remember in verses 20 through 23 of chapter 2, at the close there, he said, if with Christ you died. And then he talked about the implications of what it means to be in union with the death of Christ. And remember, he was talking about this even as far up as verses 11 through 15 when he was talking about our baptism. And so, in this spiritual circumcision without hands that's happened as we've been united to Jesus Christ and his death and resurrection. So now, in chapter 3, verse 1, he's going to say, if then you have been raised with Christ. So now it's the other side. What are the implications for us having been united with the death of Christ at the end of chapter 2? And now what are the implications of our having been raised with Christ in chapter 3? How does this affect our walk, our lives? And it's pretty amazing here what he has to say. He doesn't strap on us any rituals or obligations really at this point. Any regulations that are associated with our being raised with Christ. He's going to talk in the rest of the chapter about what it means to be dead to some things and alive to some things. So what does the life or the walk look like? But here at the outset, or at the beginning, he says that basically what it means to be raised with Christ is to seek the things that are above, to seek heavenly things, mainly to seek Christ, who is above. And so we see the conditional clause at the beginning of verse 1, chapter 3, and then we see the main verb: seek the things that are above. Seek the things, and so that the resurrection of Christ has implications for the things that we're thinking, for the ways in which we're living. And so what is above is where Christ is. And he goes on to explain that Christ is seated at the right hand of God. This is where he is. So we're supposed to seek Christ and the things associated with the reality that he is at the side of the Father. And so verse 2 says, set your minds on things that are above. And the idea here is to give careful consideration to the things that are above. And so basically he's saying is fill your mind with this knowledge that Christ has risen, that he has ascended, that he is now carrying out a role in a ministry at the right hand of the Father on behalf of the church, as he awaits the appropriate time for his return. And so we are to set our mind on those things, on Christ himself and what it means for him to be at the right hand or at the side of the Father. And not on the things that are on the earth. That is, let's not get distracted with the type of religion that originates on the earth, but set our mind on what has happened with Jesus and what will happen with Christ. So verse 3, he explains further that you have died, and your life, he coordinates it, your life is hidden with Christ in God. Now this is a great statement. Hidden here means to be hidden in a safe place, so that is kept safe. So this is the idea that our life has been locked away for safekeeping in an impenetrable fortress with Christ in God. And so the verb hidden, your life is hidden, it's a perfect passive, so we understand this to mean something like once your life was hidden away at some point with Christ in God, it now continues to be hidden, and those benefits of its hiddenness continue on into the present forevermore. And so this is an amazing truth that our life is hidden away, it has been hidden away, it continues to be hidden away, and all the benefits of it being hidden away are ours. And this was a life that was hidden away. It's a passive, so it's not something that you did. It's something that God has secured for us. And so this is a great truth. Our life is hidden with Christ in God. And so it's hidden with Christ, that is, in our union with Him. I think this is a reference again to our union with His death and resurrection, all the things that are true because of our union with Christ, and it's in God. Now, it's maybe difficult to understand that. Is this a spatial, locative understanding of in God? I think that maybe one verse that may inform us here in our understanding is John 1:18, where it speaks of Christ as in the bosom of the Father, or at the side of the Father. This is the idea. One lexicon writes that this can be used in reference to dining together at a meal, but in a non-meal context, it's speaking to the closest of associations. And so Christ is in the closest association with the Father, indeed in the bosom of the Father, at the side of the Father, again, seated at the right hand of the Father. And this is where our life is hidden. That's the location of the hiddenness of our life. So we are with Christ at the Father's side. This is where our union with Christ's resurrection has safely placed our lives. And then in verse 4, it's not that our life is merely with Christ, but moreover our life is Christ. And we see this in our union with Him. When He shows or reveals Himself at His second coming, then also we will be shown or revealed with Him in glory or radiance. That is, when He is revealed. Our union with Him is so tight that when He is revealed at His second coming, so will we be revealed or transformed at that time. That the revelation of Christ also is the revelation of the saints, of the believers. They are coordinated with one another. So that is to say that what we are to become at the revelation of Christ is yet unseen, but kept safely hidden. That's secure. This life, heavenly with Christ in God, awaiting revelation, is what Paul tells believers to carefully consider. To carefully consider instead of earthly distractions. So he wants our minds to be set on that location of our life, that it's with the resurrected Jesus at the side of the Father, in the bosom of the Father, safely kept until the day when Christ is revealed, and therefore what we are to become is revealed. And, again, this is in context of his pastoral concern that the Colossian Christians may be taken captive by or deceived into some earthly religion or tradition, some humanly originated fad of religion. And he's saying, no. We have something better, something more grand, something far superior in our union with Christ that we are waiting for. And this union with his death and resurrection is our power. It is our strength. It is the place from which we function in this spiritual walk. There isn't some other supply of power. There isn't some other supply of from which we can draw to defeat the flesh or to establish a new mindset. You see, it's Christ himself, his death and his resurrection. And now as he goes into the next parts of chapter 3, he's going to illustrate for us how this works, How does this work, me setting my mind on Christ who is raised? How does this work with me setting my mind on my union with the death of Christ? He's going to show us how. So we'll do that tomorrow. We'll begin that tomorrow. I hope you'll tune in again. Now, as you're continuing to shelter in place, I don't know where you live, where you're watching, but I pray that you'll be able to do this. You'll be able to set your mind, think carefully, and consider the life that you have as a believer hidden away with Christ in God at His side. I hope this is an encouragement to you. We'll see you tomorrow, Lord willing, as we continue in the book of Colossians.